typical split would be 80% goes to the band, but that's after they take they take their 20%, then they pay the sound guy, they pay the security guys, and then you and the other three bands split whatever's left. And if you got a huge crowd, that's awesome. It could be a lot of money, or it could be nothing. Don't be shocked if something like that comes up, because if you weren't the person who booked the gig, you don't know if that person knew this ahead of time going in or not. If they did, if it was you and they knew that, you shouldn't be surprised. If you've got anything in writing, use it. If you've got an email that says, hey, this is what we expect to get paid, and they replied back, yeah, sure, whatever, that can be considered a contract in a court of law. If you've got that stuff, great. But ideally, you're going to know what the deal is, especially if you're the guy taking the money. You should know what the deal is before you even step in the venue to play the gig. Okay? If you don't, you got to consider doing some things differently, because you should. Especially before you go to get paid, you need to know what the deal is. Consider the long-term consequences. If you say, fuck you guys, we'll never play here again, are you going to regret that in a couple months? I mean, is this a hometown venue where, you've been working 6 months, plugging really hard, trying to get into the venue in the first place? You may not want to do that. You might want to say, okay, sorry it didn't work out, and just walk away. Okay? Do you have a relationship with them already? I've seen situations where bands who usually get a very hefty guarantee, just one night nobody shows up, or hardly anybody. And so they get paid less than their normal guarantee. They're not happy about it because they put on the same show, but nobody showed up, so the venue's not making the money. They can't afford to pay. Sometimes you just got to say, okay, these things happen. Take what you can. Maybe try to talk them into paying you a little more. I mean, it might happen. If you're polite about it, it never hurts to ask. But you've got to be calm, cool, and do not do something you're going to regret. If you hit the guy, if you just haul off and slug him in the face, chances are you're going to jail. Okay? And the $300 you might have made at the gig is going to seem like small potatoes compared to the court costs and the legal fees and maybe going to jail. All right? It may not be worth arguing about at all. Especially, I've had guys argue with me over $4. And he was all upset about it. And I was like, geez, sorry, man. I don't know why your count was different than mine. $4. Jeez. And he calmed down. He came back and said, look, it's only $4. I don't know why I was so upset. And that right there helped him a lot, because I was ready to go, oh my God, this guy's a fucking freak. We don't want him in here anymore. We don't want to book this guy anymore. He's going to get all upset over two people off on the head count. A lot of places, if it's your first gig there, they're going to ask you to play for free for the first time because it's an audition. They want to see what you're like. Do you fit in the venue? Is anybody going to come to see you? It's an audition. You don't get paid to audition. But you pass the audition, that means you're going to get paid to play a real gig. And that's a whole lot more important. Should you sue? This is a good question. In my opinion, the answer is almost never. And here's the reasons why. First off, before you decide to sue, you should wait a few days. If you've got a major disagreement and you couldn't settle it the night of the gig, try again the next day, or the day after, you know, when everybody's had a chance to cool down, call them up, calm and collected, a few days later and say, hey, look, this was the deal. And by then, they're going to have sorted out any misunderstandings or miscommunications that might have happened. And they're gonna be able to talk to you, and especially if they've got a relationship with you or want to have a relationship with you, they're gonna want you to be happy. And you know, maybe they'll throw you that extra money you think you're due, particularly if you have a contract, because you know, just the thought of a lawsuit, that can be expensive. You're going to need a lawyer. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost them money. They're going to pay a lawyer probably more than they were going to pay you, or more than you think they should have paid you anyway. And that's expensive for everybody. And here's a few other reasons not to do it. Even if you have a written contract and it's a clear-cut case where they're just ripping you off, you're never going to play that venue again, probably. Why would, you know, if you're going to sue them every time you don't get paid what you hope to get paid, they're not going to book you again. That's for certain. And this goes for promoters as well. I've seen a lot of situations where some guy thinks he's going to be a big shot concert promoter, gets a bunch of bands together and throws a big concert, and nobody buys tickets, or it just doesn't get, people don't show up, or even if a lot of people show up, he's over-promised, overextended, has too many, doesn't know what he's doing, and ends up with less money than he needs. And who's going to get shafted first? It's usually the bands. Okay, the sound guys are going to get paid. Everybody's going to get paid. Who's smart and does this kind of thing for a living, they're going to get paid. But if it's somebody in your area, or even somebody huge like Live Nation or AEG, even if they've flat out ripped you off, you've got to decide: is it worth a couple of $100 to never ever play for them ever again under any circumstances because you sued them? Or is it better to just say, well, it's only a couple $100, let's just let this one go? That's promoter level, but even local club level booking people talk to each other. They get schmoozed by the same people, and they run into each other at events, and they know each other. It's not unusual for booking agents all over town to know each other, have each other's phone number, and sometimes talk to each other about bands. Like, hey, this band was a no call, no show, no lame excuse. They screwed us over on this show. That word gets around on that. Even venues that compete heavily, they probably know each other. And if you get a reputation as a band that's going to sue at the drop of a hat, you can expect to be welcomed like the plague. Okay? So the only time that you might want to sue is if it's a pretty good chunk of money and you're sure you're never going to play there again, and you don't care, or maybe it's another region and you're not going to have to worry about them bad-mouthing you around town. Okay? So the overall advice for this podcast is: make sure you understand what the agreement is before you even agree to play the show. That short circuits all the problems at the end of the show getting paid, or most of them usually. Okay? Now, I got a few stories here. Here's one about a local band. These guys were a kind of a reggae ska band. They played a St. Patrick's Day gig at an Irish pub. Well, in between sets, they went out back into the alley and they got high. Well, the club manager